Emmanuel Kotin, Executive Director, Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. How this country, Ghana, is dealing with the rise of terrorism, and if there is actually a risk of terrorism in this country?
Well, thank you for having me. And in fact, let me be clear on this subject matter. Ghana is not immune from terrorism at all. Because if you look at the conditions that give rise to terrorism activities in other countries, especially in the Sahel, same conditions prevail here in Ghana. I don't know whether it's an act of God. If you look at Ghana, Ghana has been surrounded with countries that have had their fair share of dealing with violent extremism. And if you can recall, Africa had his fair share in the form of election violence when Ouattara came vis-a-vis Gbagbo. You remember what happened in Togo when Yasinbe's son, the current president, tried to change the constitution. You remember the electoral violence in Benin. And just recently, we are surrounded by a coup d'etat in Burkina Faso. For Nigeria, it is well documented the rate of violent extremism, especially in the north. So Ghana is not immune, like I mentioned, but the truth of the matter is that the Ghanaian people are kind of people who are inquisitive. When they see things that are not comfortable around them, they quickly inform the security agencies. I think it's partly the reason why Ghana have not tasted any form of terrorist attack or activity in the country. But I can say we have not had one form of terrorist activities in the country. Indeed, if you look at the acts of terrorism, especially the lone wolves, they take a long time to plan. Probably there are cells within the country that are underground waiting to germinate. And you realize 2 Ghanaian students were involved with terrorist organizations. They successfully recruited them, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was equally well documented. So to say that Ghana is immune, no, Ghana is not immune. For all you know, it's a long-term strategy there, which is in the planning. And I think regardless of what happened, our security agencies are on top of their job.
Seeing what is happening in some Francophone countries in the Sahel, for example, the Burkina Faso, but now even Guinea-Bissau is involved, could Ghana have a role of mediator at some table of discussion?
Yes, Ghana has always played a major role in mediating in conflict resolution in Africa, especially in West Africa. If you look at peacekeeping activities around Africa, Ghana contributes a large share of peacekeepers. But the sad thing is that Ghana currently holds the chair of Ecowas, and we have witnessed a lot of coups d'etats within the sub-region. And to me, Ecowas is fast becoming a very dysfunctional body. It has become like a club of presidents. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. And I think that it's about time we reform ECOWAS. ECOWAS was modeled based on the EU, but for one reason or the other, African leaders decided to choose and pick what works in their interests. I think that we have to do away with the power that is so much vested in the chairman of ECOWAS. Who is he or himself a president of any of these ECOWAS countries? So if we can get the administration of ECOWAS to function independent of the political wing, which is normally headed by a president, I think we'll be making a headway. Otherwise, these presidents, they know themselves very well, and they kind of interdepend on each other. So if one is not even doing well and is having problems, it's difficult for the other to speak up against because of fringe benefits attached to governance. You see how interconnected it is. Look at Mali. when people started agitating, I expected Ecowas to act to the extent that democratic voices were stifled. People wanted to demonstrate, they didn't allow them. And you recall the Mali coup d'etat, they stopped a lawful demonstration by the citizens of Mali, and 2 days later there was a coup. In Burkina Faso, it was a similar thing. So my challenge with Ecowas is that why would Ecowas wait when the problem is created, they come in? And more often than not, they are not so dynamic with their solutions. They still use the orthodox and traditional way of getting people to whip these military juntas into line. And to be honest, what did they do? They play sanctions and kind of excommunicate these countries from ECOWAS. Does it really solve the problem? It is no. Because many of these military leaders who take power, they are little known. They don't have any international cloud or international business or finances somewhere. If you put sanctions on them, it will affect them. Overall, the sanctions affect the good people of these countries that fall victims to coup d'etats.
What's the role of civil society here in Ghana in preventing insecurity and destabilization?
You see, civil society organization I've always advocated is the fourth arm of government. But unfortunately in Africa, and Ghana is not an exception, resources are not given to civil society organizations to work. Government don't collaborate with civil society organizations for fear that these organizations, independent as they are, may expose their flaws. And truth be told, civil society organizations are the voice of the voiceless. They are on the ground with the people. Oftentimes, we even gather intelligence and pass it over to security agencies because many citizens are more comfortable talking to people they can trust, people they can depend on, than talking directly to our civil society, than talking directly to our security agencies. This is why it is imperative for governments in Africa to look at ways in partnering with civil society organizations to make governance a good enterprise for the ordinary citizen. Because what is democracy? Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So definitely everything starts with the people.
What are, in your opinion, the main causes for the instability in the Sahel?
Look, they are married of reasons. If you look at the Sahel is a landlocked area. And with largely rural population. So what does that tell us? It means that a lot of young men and women are not employed. We have very few urban centers. And coupled with that is inter-ethnic, tribal, and chieftaincy conflicts. And more often than not, government don't act decisively in dealing with some of these macrocosm of smaller conflicts within the country. So when that happens, and the pillars of governance collapse, this triggers force in automatically, and it leads to some kind of uprising. And another thing is that citizens don't have their sense of entitlement to the country as citizens. Because we pay taxes, our government misuse the taxes, and it kind of have a domino effect. Why should I pay tax? What should I do with it? And I think democracy in Africa shouldn't merely be reduced to going to elections every 4 or 5 years to elect new leaders and the status quo remains the same. So these are some of the main driving forces behind some of these conflicts in the Sahel region.
What should be the role or not should be the role of international community in the issues of those countries?
I think the international community has to have a paradigm shift and move away from the colonial mentality and engage African countries as equal partners. Because African countries are now sovereign, just like any other country. And in this true and proper spirit of democracy, I think that should be the honor between these countries. It shouldn't be the era where you throw crumbs to these African countries and take what you want. Because the world economy will collapse if Africa fails. Because natural resources that many of these industrial countries uses, where does it come from? In Africa. So the role of the international community should be such that they should hold African leaders accountable. If they are not going by the democratic credentials as enshrined by the constitutions of this country, I think there should be punitive measures. And more often than not, the international community sit down because they benefit one way or the other and allow these leaders to change constitutions to remain in power. Look at what happened in Cote d'Ivoire. That was quite shameful, but no one is talking about it. It happened in Togo. And more often than not, it is in the French-speaking countries some of these infractions take place. So the international community have to engage African leaders, train its military and security agencies, and apart from the training, there should be logistical support to deliver such training.
Do you think that there is enough space, public space, political space and social space for young people?
I don't think so. And it is a disease in Africa. If there was a political space where young people can express their opinion without any form of victimization, I don't think we'll be where we are. It is because of the lack of the space for young people to express their feelings that makes them go underground and they do all kinds of activities. Let's take an example. Look at Africa. Let's focus on West Africa. Look at the unemployment rates in these countries. Just oppose that with our educational system. If you don't have a good educational system, you churn out graduates that does not fit into the job market. Graduates who come out of university and they are looking for central government to employ them. Where lies the hope for such a country? And the sad reality is that that is what is happening in West Africa. And even in my country, Ghana, the educational system have not been stable. Politicians come and play with the system. This party comes, they change it to that. This party comes, they change it to that. How do you place value on these certifications? And I think that it's about time we call our leaders out and come out with national development policies that is devoid of politics. Any government that is in power, such policies ought and must be implemented.
Last question. Do you foresee a coup in Ghana as some people do?
In fact, I always believe in positivities. Anything is possible. No one envisaged there will be coup in Mali. From Mali, it moved to Burkina Guinea now. And you know, in the other African countries, we had a lot of other coup attempts. Some succeeded, others didn't. No one can anticipate, but the conditions in the country now, the youth are so poisoned, and if government does not take urgent steps to address some of these underlying conditions, unemployment, accountability, the profligacy of politicians, it's just a time bomb waiting to happen. Because any disgruntled military man can organize a few other military people and boom, it will happen. And look at what happened in other African countries. It is so rare to see a military takeover where citizens will come on the street and jubilate over a military takeover. Mali, it happened. Burkina Faso, it happened. Guinea, it happened. It means that there is something fundamentally wrong. And I pray that the government of Ghana will watch the events that are happening around its borders and take action so that we don't go back to the dark days of military rules. Because they say in an African proverb that if your neighbor's beer is on fire, you fetch water near your own beer, so that it doesn't also catch fire.